Well, we'll move on to our next panel question from Mr. Jack Clark, Jr.
The issue I'd like you to talk about is the cost of the Riverside Renaissance. It's been reported in the community that the original estimated cost of about $700 million has increased to over $1 billion. I'd like you to explain to us your understanding of the cost of the Riverside Renaissance. If indeed it is going to cost much more than was anticipated, where will that additional revenue come from? And then how do you hold management accountable for performance with regard to that issue?
This will go to Don Betro first.
Thank you. You are correct. The Renaissance projection is up to $1.7 billion. And that's what it is. It is a capital improvement budget, a 5-year projection of what we need to do in this city to jumpstart all of the neglect, to get on top of all the things that have not been done for decades here. And like anyone who runs a business, there is a difference between a capital budget projection and revenue coming in and expenses going out. That's not what the Renaissance is. The good news about it is twofold. One is that 99.5% of the Renaissance revenue is identified, and I would say is 95% certain. All but about $46 million is questionable about where that money would come from over 5 years. That is unbelievable on a capital projection budget. And sure, things will change. They may go up, they may go down, and that's what you do, you adjust. The other good news is that over 58% of the projects are already underway of the Renaissance. They've been approved, and they're happening. Over half of the Renaissance money is identified and going towards these improvements. And finally, every item over $50,000 comes to the City Council for approval. And that is where we decide ultimately, are we going to follow this budget or are we not? Are we going to make choices for something else or are we going to do it? And so there's enormous checks and balances on it, but the good news is it's happening right before our eyes.
Thank you. All right, Mike Garner.
Thank you. The Renaissance project started about a year ago as I recall, a $781 million project. It was announced with great fanfare at the Civic Auditorium. It is now a $1.76 billion project, or series of projects. That's not necessarily bad. One of the reasons that the cost is as high as it is the Renaissance includes all kinds of projects that were approved and funded before the Renaissance was invented, were built and occupied and functioning before the Renaissance was invented, and we keep adding more and more new things to the Renaissance which may or may not belong there. An example of that is the Raincross Promenade project, a private project, housing project on Market Street between 1st and 3rd. It's a Renaissance project because the redevelopment agency took the properties that the project is going to sit on. I think that in the long term, as projects come forward to be looked at, some will end up being deferred because we don't have the funding, or we may not have the funding. Much of the funding of the Renaissance project depends on the success of redevelopment projects. With the economy in the downturn that it is right now, I think that's going to potentially delay some of that funding being available. It's not going to go away, but I think it may delay it a bit.
Thank you. Mr. Beltray, 30 seconds.
Once again, the Renaissance project is a budget projection. The good news is it is happening before our eyes. The money is there. Half of it is for public infrastructure, and most of that is for public utilities, repairing aging 100-year-old water lines and electric lines, streets, curbs, and gutters, which have not been addressed for years. Remember this summer, remember the bridge falling down in Minneapolis, the gas line blowing up in New York. The infrastructure in all of our cities in this country is aging. I am proud of the fact that we have stepped out and said we will not let that happen to Riverside. We will prepare for the future. We will do it now. And yes, we will grow our economic pie to make it happen.
And Mr. Garner.
I don't think I have anything to add. Thank you.
Very good.